hope you remember for my decade list, not only for the top 100 songs, but also the top 50 albums, that the Smith Street Band did appear on there, because I do think the album Throw Me in the River is pretty phenomenal. Not only for pop punk in the 2010s and a bit of folk punk you could throw in there too, but just in music generally, I found that their album Throw Me in the River just hits a spot that not many bands in that style can even generally achieve, and I just find so much power in that album. The way the vocalist sings, the way he just yells his words, there's just so much to latch onto. You're hanging on every single word he says, so much emotion and power. Look, if you're a fan of that Spanish Love Songs album that came out earlier in the year, if you're a fan of anything that Jeff Rosenstock has done, then I couldn't imagine why you wouldn't at least consider an album like this, because it is just really, really strong. However, they've unfortunately become one of those bands that, for me, I think they just have struggled to really reach the heights of an album like that. Like, they really are a band that set themselves so high that reaching that again is nearly impossible. The album in 2017 I thought was pretty good though. There were some really good tracks on there, kind of hitting that same peak that Throw Me in the River did, but as a fully realized project, as a front to back album, it didn't really hit the landing like that one did. So it's unfortunate, because it's going to be one of those occurrences where you can't help but compare everything a band does to that one piece of music that you love, and that can be kind of harmful, not only for bands, because obviously they're, you know, held to an expectation, but also just your own listening experience as well, because maybe you're missing out on some great albums, and you're just latching onto that one album that you have such an attachment to. But to be honest, this new album, I just think as a standalone album, without even thinking about Throw Me in the River, it isn't too good. Like, there are some moments here and there that really shine through, but there's so many elements of this album that just feels a bit pale and plain. Like, some of these tracks feel so squashed to me. Like, there are moments where you feel like there's an anthem breaking through, there's a chorus breaking through, and nothing's left to breathe, nothing's left to kind of blossom. Something just feels a bit odd in the production that kind of holds a lot of these songs back. I also think the singing on this album's a little rough at points too. It was always a little bit rough, even on their best work, but there was something about the way he had this passion to his delivery that I think was completely unmatched. Whereas on this album, he just kind of sounds kind of tired, to be honest. I feel as though a lot of the lyrics are weighing him down in a way, because I feel, you know, a lot of what he says is coming from an incredibly personal place, and I feel as though as years have gone by, he is kind of just losing a bit of that love in a way, which totally makes sense when you listen to some of these lyrics. I mean, there's one track where he's talking about how he just doesn't love people anymore, which sounds incredibly over the top, but just to say something like that is actually kind of depressing, really. And I just miss the times where he would sell a lyric like that with so much passion and so much power that you wouldn't really think much of it. But it's hard to not notice some melodramatic moments on this album because of how he sings his words. And even on a track like It's Okay, where you've stripped everything back to just this acoustic guitar, it becomes incredibly plain, to be honest, with his singing over this kind of instrumental. It's not really playing to their strengths, and fair enough, you know, every band wants to kind of just whip out an acoustic guitar every now and then for some softer music, but he just doesn't really have the vocal chops to carry it through, I don't think. There's just such a lack of drive to these songs. Like, it is kind of a bit of a plain album. Like, I wouldn't listen to this band and think they once had an album that I thought was amazing. I would just listen to an album like this and think, yeah, I've heard lots of bands in this style before doing what they do. It feels kind of run-of-the-mill, and that's what kind of comes with the disappointment, because you know that this band has more in them. They have more like swirlingness whatever that word even means, but there is a way that they just make these songs kind of just feel like they're rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling, and everything's just going on in your head and you can't keep up with things, whereas there is just that tired feel to this album. A track like Don't Waste Your Anger is fine, but I think the extended outro with the echoey vocals just is really not pleasant to listen to. Just feels like it could have ended at that point, to be honest. It doesn't really add anything to the song. It's not particularly dynamic in its sound. There is the occasional lyric, I would say, that pops up that I do find to be quite interesting, and does kind of make me ponder about things. But the thing with this album is that there's so much just straight to the pointness that you don't really have much to think about, in the same way that, you know, Brave Faces Everyone from earlier this year just constantly had these interesting lyrics that get thrown out there that make you think about things that you wouldn't normally think about at all. I do like that one line though where he says, I find it incredibly boring how everyone just talks about everyone else. I do like that line because honestly, I relate to that a lot. Like when you're just around a group of people, the general gist of a conversation, it just ends up being about how you're bitching about someone or gossiping about a friend that did something, and it just gets incredibly boring and dull. Like that is one lyric I find to be really, really powerful on the album, because I'm just like, yeah, you nailed that one. You're right. Yeah, this album just fails to stick the landing, man. There's just not enough power driving these songs. There's just not that same energy that propelled the songs on previous work to such great heights. And like I say, I think that tiredness is coming through a little bit. I think the singer is kind of showing a lot of his emotions on his sleeve on this album, because he just sounds as tired as he is letting on with his lyrics, which is a shame, because obviously, you know, in my mind I'm thinking I would like him to get better, but it's just not really coming through in the music at all. It's also not really adding anything new to the catalogue of what they've done in the past as well. Like, you could find similar songs to what they're doing here, done way better elsewhere, and that's a huge shame. I'm not sure if they'll ever really make an album that like hits me ever again, but we'll see, but I guess a 5.5 out of 10 is pretty accurate for this. So yeah, that's my opinion on this one. If you've listened to it, let me know what you think. Sorry for a bit of a disappointing review, but that's how it is. Let me know your thoughts on this band in the comments, your favourite album. Thank you for watching my review. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Have a good day and goodbye.